We are at one of the busiest times when we are just starting to hit April. And of course, what is going to happen, we hope, is a lot more listings, but also a lot of people looking to buy houses. So how do you handle the situation where you've got to sell the house, but also you need to buy a house, but you really need to sell the house before you buy a house? Let's give you some tips right now. Hey everyone, Richard Payne here from Halifax Homes and Lifestyles in this amazing place where I live called Halifax. And today I want to get into a pretty common situation that a lot of people find themselves in, which is, okay, Richard, I need to sell my house because I want to buy another house, but I have to sell my house first before I can afford to buy that other house. So how do you do that? How do we get into the situation to put you in the best possible position to make sure that we are absolutely getting this right and making sure that we are protecting you, that we are finding the right house, but at the same time selling the house as well? It's going to come down to three things that we could actually work out for you here. So the first thing that we want to talk about is maybe you're in that situation, and this is absolutely not for everybody, but maybe this does work for you where you actually have equity in your current home right now that would allow you to either do a refinance or access that equity that allows you to be able to basically go ahead and shop and find that new home without actually having to make sure that you've sold the home. Because here's one of the biggest problems we're finding is inventory is still pretty tight here in Halifax. We don't have a ton of houses for sale. So because of that situation, a lot of people who want to sell are like, great, but I don't have a house to buy. So if I'm not sure that I have a house to buy, how can I put my house up for sale? Well, this is one of the ways that you can do it is by, let's say there is, I don't know, like $400,000 of equity in your property right now. The first thing, of course, is getting financing. And you've got to make sure as a buyer anyway, in any market, in any condition, as a buyer, you really need to make sure that you are pre-qualified, that you've got yourself set up so that you can actually qualify for a mortgage. Now, if you've been in your property a while and you can access that equity that's in the property, that becomes the first stage of buyer pre-approval, which is called down payment. 5, 10, 15, 20 or more percentage will actually allow you to qualify as the down payment to get the mortgage. Now, yes, once you get the pre-qualification, you still have to be able to afford that mortgage of the other, let's say 80%. You still have to be able to afford the rest of that mortgage to make sure then that you can make the mortgage payments, then everything will work out fine from there on afterwards. But that's the first stage, is get pre-approved and see if there's a way of accessing some equity in your current property to then be able to go and use that as a down payment and buy the next house. Once you actually have, and here's another thing, like we'll get into this in another video, but don't forget when you buy a house, you have a certain amount of time to do two things. Number one, get through your condition removal. But number two, get to closing day. Closing day is when you get the keys for the property. That's when you move in. So don't forget that just because you actually have the offer accepted, you've removed conditions, you could still have 40 to 60 days before closing day, moving in day, in which you could work like crazy and get your house up for sale and then at least get it on the market so that maybe you can actually get your house sold, know that you've got a house that you've already bought, and therefore make the move seamlessly as possible. Like, you know, it's not going to be perfect, but as seamless and as painful as possible. So that's one of the options that you can actually get through selling your home and buying another one. Now, the second option, and this is a lot more common, and we did a podcast with a fellow realtor of mine, Jason Paul at eXp Realty, when we talked all about a condition called sale of buyer's property. Sale of buyer's property basically states you write an offer on the house that you want to buy, but it's conditional not only in terms of inspections and financing and lawyer and all the other conditions, but there's a major overriding condition, which is I need to sell my house. And then you allow yourself a certain amount of days in which to actually get your house unconditional, not closed, not moved out, just unconditional. And that can be anywhere from like 30 days to 45 days to 60 days. It depends what you and your realtor as the buyers offer and what the seller decides to actually accept, negotiate, do whatever. So that's one of the big things. Now, the difficulty sometimes with being an offer that gets put on a house pending sale of the buyer's property is at any stage you could get bumped. So that house is still active on the MLS system. People can still go and view it. Other buyers can still go and write offers on that property and actually bump you out of the way, because there is a clause in there that says the seller reserves the right to still market the property, to still accept viewings, to still look and accept an offer, but the offer has to understand that you are in first place. But you also have what's called that get out clause, which is a 24-hour notice period where your seller, so remember, you're in first place at the moment, conditional sale of buyer's property. But that seller can basically say, I've got another buyer, I've accepted their offer pending you deciding to do one of two things. Number one, walk away from the deal. Forget the property. You've spent the money on the inspections, whatever else it may be. Lawyers don't usually charge you for the kind of pre-work. A lot of the lawyer's work comes at the end. So number one, you could walk away. Number two, you remove the sale of buyer's property condition, and then you are absolutely buying that house, even if yours is not for sale, not conditional, is not closed. Because realistically, if you were pending sale of buyer's property and you hadn't accepted offer on yours and you were unconditional, that's when you would remove the sale of buyer's property condition. The whole chain carries on and all the dominoes fall and you're buying that house. But if you are not conditional or not unconditional, so you're not firm, you could do this actually, even if you were conditional, is you actually have to make a decision. Do you want to remove that sale of buyer's property? Now, the other problem with sale of buyer's property is, let's put yourself in this situation of the seller. So you're the buyer and I'm the seller. I'm looking at your offer. You're saying I need to sell my house first. The first question I'm going to ask you is, are you for sale? Are you actually on the market? Have you had viewings? What price are you at? Where are you? What's the condition of the house like? So if you're writing an offer on a property pending sale of your property, the difficulty is you really need to be serious. You really need to be on the market for sale. But that now puts you back in that situation of like, oh, I'm looking at houses and I haven't sold my house and I'm nervous again. So it's a very fine line, that sale of buyer's property. And if you go back and listen to the podcast that we'll put a link down below in the description with Jason, you will see that both me and Jason have that feeling of, we would rather have you up on the market and potentially conditional or potentially even unconditional and therefore sold before you go out and start shopping for properties, because it's all about the seriousness and the intent of you, the buyer. So that's number two option, is start doing sale of buyer's property conditions offers, but it does have that caveat of how serious really are you. So that's number two. Now, number three option, this is definitely one of those ones that a lot of people would look at to say, I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to do this one. But number three option is all about get your house on the market, get your house sold, put the cash in the bank and move out and go for a short-term rental. So here's the thing with short-term rentals is there's not a lot of them about. You are also doing quite a few moves to actually find that new property. And then what happens if you get to the end of your short-term rental 2-3 month period and you haven't found that property? So it is a very short-term sticky plaster, and it can involve more than just one move. You could be doing 2 or maybe even 3 moves, especially when we're looking at short-term rentals, because the short-term rental is a very, very small market. It's not cheap either because it's short-term. So landlords, people that own properties that are looking for short-term rental options for people like you in this situation are going to charge for it. Like there is going to be a little bit of a premium. So that's one of the other disadvantages of doing that. So when you look at the short-term rental option, it could work, but you really need to be sure if you're doing the short-term rental that you've actually looked at the market, you've looked on MLS and you've actually gone, no, like, you know, I'm going to put my house up for sale. I'm going to try and get as good as long as closing as possible. 60 days, 70 days, maybe. You could try for that 3 months, 4 months, but you're looking for a very, very specific person that's going to wait 3 months to move into the property. Not to say it doesn't happen. I'm just saying it's a very specific situation. So the short-term rental option definitely gives you a possibility, but you better be sure that you've seen properties that you said, do you know what? Right now, absolutely, I could go and buy that property. Now, bonus option number 4. Let's talk new construction, because that could be an option for you as well. It's going to involve probably the short-term rental situation, but at least that one as well, especially if you're looking at new construction, it could be anywhere from like it's not even started, so like raw ground, not even broken ground, and therefore you're waiting 10 to 12 months to move into the property. Plenty of time to get your property up for sale and actually sold. But again, there's a lot of timing of the market in that situation as well, because right now we don't know what the market's going to be like in a year's time. We kind of hope that we know what it's like, but it's not certain. So short-term rental going into then a new construction could be that 4th option for you. And there's lots of different options, different styles of houses in terms of short-term, in terms of new construction. And definitely we have plenty of links on our website about the new construction sites and what's available. We also work with some of the best builders in the business over here. And definitely we know who our favorites are as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, that could be your 4th option. Now, if you have any questions on anything of here, or even just want to sit down and say, do you know what? I need to understand in a lot more detail how we're going to make this happen. Because we got one client now that, we had a good long conversation with her about how we're going to be able to make this work. So that's the situation. You've got to sit down, look at all your options. And if you want to give us a shout, all of the contact details are below. We'd love to give you the benefit of our advice, our expertise and knowledge of what we've done, how we've done it, and how we can, fingers crossed, make this work for you.